Hey there, Jordan Chariton live. Well, not live, pre-recorded because I couldn't go live at the normal time. I'm getting an MRI. My knee is messed up. So more on that later. Tomorrow night, though, we will be having our members call. That is our Status Coup members call. I'll promote it a couple times during this stream. So that's going to be at 7 o'clock Eastern time. So be there or be square. 4 o'clock Pacific. It'll be a lot of fun through Zoom. So if you're an old member, you know the drill, how to get the membership link. You'll get an email before the call. If you're a new Status Coup member, you'll get an email with the Zoom link that applies to patrons too. So you got a little over 24 hours to sign up as a member to get on our call tomorrow night. We will have a lot of exciting things to discuss as well as some drama. I'm looking forward to it. Steve, maybe you should join us too if you get a chance around
Sure.
around the kiddies. So a lot to discuss today. Some victories last night in the progressive movement. I don't know how excited to be or not to be. We'll talk about that slightly. J.P. Morgan's fraudster head, Jamie Dimon, back at it again, now fighting with shareholders so he could get his $56 million bonus. We'll discuss that. We also have Jeff Bezos, a nauseating battle between Jeff Bezos and the White House over inflation. They're both full of shit, but we'll take on both. We also have a pretty obvious story that, shocker, polls show voters want big change, big bold change rather than small incremental peanuts. So we'll get into that, as well as the branding experts at MSNBC. Their message to you on how to combat the Republican extremism and Republicans scaring people is we need to scare people more. I shit you not. So we'll get into it all. Please smash that like button. It's a thumbs up button right under the stream. The more people that press like, the more people that will see this very stream. Sharing is caring too. And let your super chats will be appreciated too. We really could use your support. So, Steve, won't hit on it much, but since you're in Pennsylvania, what's your take? Fetterman's victory last night, as well as Summer Lee, who's a state representative there, who it looks like it's very close. She took the lead narrowly. She's not even up a full point, so it hasn't been declared yet, but she won. It looks like she's going to win over a union avoidance lawyer that the Democratic Party rallied around. Shocker, Steve Irwin. My takeaway, I've met Fetterman. I interviewed him a couple of years ago. I don't think he's like a capital P progressive. I think he is more like a union lunch bucket guy. I think he will go where he needs to go to get elected and stay in power. But I certainly think he's more progressive than Connor Lamb Sandwich, who he handily defeated. He is a union guy. I think he's for Medicare for all. He said he was for Medicare for all, but in the last debate, he kind of hemmed and hawed on it. But he's not going to be a Joe Manchin, so I guess better than nothing. And on Summer Lee, my takeaway is from everything I've read, she's got a good life story. She's for Medicare for all and these kind of things. I have zero idea whether she will actually fight once in there rather than the squad we have now. But I think she's better than the alternative, which was a union avoidance lawyer.
Yeah, I mean, I full disclosure, I voted, and I did vote for
Sell out.
Fetterman. Yeah, I know. I did vote for Fetterman because I looked at Lamb and almost threw up because Lamb is really, really bad. I mean, Lamb is straight up a Republican. I mean, with a D in front, like most Democrats are Republicans. He's no exception. He's probably the worst of the bunch. Fetterman, I think you nailed it. He's kind of like that blue collar kind of lunch pail kind of union guy. Sometimes he gets it right. He's got some rather unprogressive stances. Don't need to get into it because none of these people are really that progressive. This is a purple state, to say the least, and it skews more red, I think, in many ways than blue. You got Philadelphia and you got Pittsburgh, and then you got Pennsylvania in between. So, it is very much a purple state. So you got to kind of play some games here to get through the door. The Republican side of things is awful. And anecdotally, as I was walking up to the polling booth, this guy was trying to give me one of the major Trump people's cards out, and right when I walked up, a huge wind gust blew the table away and all the stuff went everywhere. And I said, there you go, buddy, go ahead and go chase your things, and went in there and voted. As far as Summer Lee goes, you know what? She's never served. She said a lot of progressive things. I'm of the show me, don't tell me variety. So as far as it goes, I've heard a lot of things from people that say she's very progressive. Which, let's see. Let's see. That's the best I got with that one.
Well, I think beyond Summer Lee, the story of that race in Pennsylvania's 12th district, she was up 25 to 30 points. And then AIPAC and all of these super PACs started bombarding the television air in Pittsburgh, Allegheny County. The surrounding one, I think, is Westmoreland. That's part of that district. And
Yes.
she, literally a union avoidance lawyer, basically a union buster, was able to narrowly beat her. I mean, it's not called yet because the race
Right.
is very close, but essentially it shows you money can buy in elections because she is a state representative. She's a known quantity. She had an upset victory, I think 2 years ago, to beat an incumbent to get into the state house as a representative. So the fact is that she narrowly lost because of all this money, painting her as not loyal to Biden and not or basically anti-Israel. And, the hits that they used against Turner and other
Sure.
progressives happen to be progressive women of color that the Israel lobby keeps coming after. So regardless of whether Lee will fight or not, it just shows you, yes, victory, progressive beat the money, but very narrowly, and it could have went the other way. So the progressive movement, not just electorally, but outside of electoral politics, needs to get their act together and how you're going to combat this big money. Because
Yes.
the big money, it's coming for elections, but it's going to be coming even stronger for labor union organizing and the
Yes.
strike wave and big money from these super PACs and this and that. They'll find a way to use it to deploy to stop unionization, cripple strikes, and other things. So they are a well-organized machine. These super PACs, and these politicians, they don't coordinate. They don't coordinate. Yeah, I got a bridge to sell you. Whereas we are not the most organized, and we have a bunch of isolated organizations, some better than other. So Summer Lee, although it's good that she won, again, we'll believe it when we see it, whether she's going to actually exert power as a congressperson. She has to get there first, but she was going to win by a lot, and AIPAC narrowly defeated her. So smash that like button so we could get more people watching this, share this live stream. Let's move on. This isn't much in the news now, but I think it should be the big story because it just shows the rot of the United Corporations of America, because we do live. Oh, you know what? I lied. Before I say that, a little breaking news, Steve. Guess who's already telling Dr. Oz to declare that he won before the votes are out?
Would that be Donald Trump?
Look at that. Here we go again. Trump posits Dr. Oz should declare victory before he gets cheated with found ballots. Former President Trump once again acclaimed an election is being subverted by cheating, all while saying Dr. Oz should go ahead and declare himself the winner of Pennsylvania's Republican Senate primary. The Pennsylvania race is currently too close to call as votes are being counted to see whether Oz, who was endorsed by Trump, managed to defeat Republican rival Dave McCormick. The ambiguity over the final results stems from a combination of early voting and mail-in ballots that have yet to be counted. Trump, as far as Trump sees it, the contest is already over. He went on Truth Social, his ham sandwich social media site, saying Dr. Oz should declare victory. It makes it much harder for them to cheat with the ballots that they just happened to find. To be clear, YouTube, because the algorithm here is a little tricky. We don't agree with the former president. He lost fair and square in the presidential election. So the talk of elections, we're just reporting it. We're not advocating for it. Trump lost to Biden. With that said, yeah, Trump is being a circus animal, and Dr. Oz might follow him and just declare victory. But I don't think a lot of people realize, Steve, literally, Republican legislatures around the country have been removing election officials who certified the election for Biden, and they have been instilling MAGA loyalists. So regardless of what neoliberal ham sandwich the Democrats put forward in 2024, if that Democrat wins, don't be so sure that Republican states are going to certify it now that they've been systematically removing the state officials that certify elections, because it's not just the Secretary of States. We're talking on the county level and higher. They have been removing officials that even were Republican officials that certified the election for Biden.
It's so bad here in Pennsylvania alone. The news ads, the way that the Republicans that are quote unquote MAGA, minus Oz, ironically, Oz didn't run this election the way that the others did. They are literally championing. So, and they got you can almost hear it's like the blonde early 30s mom with the AR-15 rifle on the firing range talking to the camera kind of feel, if you can imagine. And she's saying, and so is for stop the stale, and so and goes through all the things that you're like, oh my God, that's exactly why I wouldn't vote for. And he will stop the woke culture of America dead in its tracks. So this is the kind of thing that you can see in Pennsylvania elections right now. And in these primaries here, the ads are so over the top. It's unbelievable. I mean, they were running ads against Oz, even though he's the Trump selection, so to speak. They're running ads against him saying Oz fought for Turkey. Oz is not a true American patriot. Oz once said that Biden was a nice guy or something to that effect. I mean, literally, Oz is not a social conservative. Oz is that, on and on and on. So the way that the Republican ads are going in Pennsylvania, you could just see that they're banking on people being 3% bigots to win. And they're literally like, yes, this is the winning message, that they're not woke, that they'll stop woke culture, that they'll make sure bathrooms are for the boys with PPs and the girls with, whatever. I mean, literally, this is how over the top Pennsylvania Republican ads are. No idea what it looks like in the rest of the world. I barely watch them, but in this state, it's hard to avoid them. It's on everything, man.
Yeah, but I mean, bottom line, whether you're going to vote in 2024 for a Democrat or Republican, whether you're going to do Green Party, whether you're going to do Libertarian, whether you're not going to vote, whatever the case may be, don't like. I have really tried to stay away from, tossing out fascism, tossing out Hitler, that kind of stuff with the Republicans, but they're basically trying to systematically rig states to put in Trump loyalists, and I think they would do the same thing for DeSantis, to basically not execute democracy and to either not execute the will of the people if it's for a Democrat, or to overturn it. So that's a scary thing. Say what you want about the Democratic Party. Thus far, they've only rigged the primaries in the Democratic on the Democratic column, but they have not certified like George W. Bush winning. In my view, Al Gore should have continued fighting. They ended up certifying it after a couple months of fighting. They didn't fight Bush re-election in 2004 and on and on. So this is pretty scary because whether you're going to support Biden or not, or Kamala, or if it's a progressive, at this point, they are systematically trying to build up their infrastructure to overturn the elections, which you're already seeing Trump egging on Oz. So hopefully Oz is a miscreant anyway, so he might piggyback off this. For God's sakes, Oz, he thanked Trump and then Sean Hannity in his speech last night. So moving on, smash that like button. Jamie Dimon, the head of JP Morgan Chase, one of the instrumental banks in tanking the global financial system in 2008, 2009. Steve, contrary to the myth, a lot of people still haven't recovered from that over a decade later. Jamie Dimon is in a bit of a battle royale right now with shareholders of JP Morgan Chase, because those shareholders, I don't know, maybe they woke up on the wrong side of the bed, have a conscience. JP Morgan investors hand Jamie Dimon a rare rebuke with disapproval of his $52.6 million bonus. Just 31% of investors participating in the New York-based bank's annual shareholder meeting voted in support of a $52 million award that was part of Dimon's 2021 compensation package. The bonus, in the form of 1.5 million options that Dimon can exercise in 2026, was designed to keep the CEO and chairman at the helm for another 5 years. While the result of the so-called, quote, say on pay vote are non-binding, meaning he's still going to collect his bonus, JP Morgan's board said it takes investors' feedback seriously and intended Dimon's bonus to be a one-time event, according to the company spokesperson. Before I get your thoughts, I just want to take a trip down memory lane. Here's Jamie Dimon on the tyranny of socialism.
Becky had mentioned this piece that you just wrote in Time magazine, and we wanted to ask you about it. It refers specifically to what seems like you poll young people about the world, the word capitalism, and they may be on the socialist side of things.
I don't think they understand. Honestly, I don't think people understand what socialism is. Socialism is when the government controls companies. There is no example where the government controls companies, they do it well, and they don't start to use it for votes, satisfying people. They don't even want competition, because if we're two government companies, why have competition? They do it for jobs and votes. They have bad allocation of capital. Most state-owned enterprises don't do a particularly good job. Just take a look around the world, and they become corrupt over time. That does not mean that capitalism is perfect. It doesn't mean that every public company is perfect. No, there are flaws.
Do you think that Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren are socialists in the construct that you talked about it, or in the construct of this idea of a democratic socialist, which is something that may feel more European in some ways?
I don't want to talk about any particular people. But if you're talking about governments controlling corporations, that's socialism. You can do it in a small way, or you can do it in a big way. The small way is to put a commissar on your board. Remember the old Russian commissars? That's all. They're just going to sit in the room, or do it through regulatory or stuff like that. The other way is that they actually own the company. And, that's why if you look at all these other countries, they start to take over the oil companies and then the steel companies, then the utility companies.
And the banks.
And the banks. And then the banks start making loans not to a good company, not because they're properly allocating capital to its highest and best use, but to keep that factory open, the bridge to nowhere, to make sure the mayor doesn't lose jobs in his town. And once you do that, you will have an eroding society.
So, Steve, we are very concerned, eroding society and all that jazz. I just want to air, so viewers might not know this, great reporting from The Nation. Let's see, because it seems like JP Morgan might have deployed a little socialism once upon a time. Let's take a look here. This is from The Nation. The old joke, how do you make a killing on Wall Street and never risk a loss? Easy. Use other people's money. Jamie Dimon and his underlings at JP Morgan Chase have perfected this dark art at America's largest bank, which boasts a balance sheet 1/8 the size of the entire U.S. economy. After JP Morgan's deceitful activities in the housing market helped trigger the 2008 financial crash that cost millions of Americans their jobs, homes, and life savings, punishment was in order. Among a vast array of misconduct, JP Morgan engaged in the routine use of robo-signing, which allowed bank employees to automatically sign hundreds, even thousands, of foreclosure documents per day without verifying their contents. But in the United States, white-collar criminals rarely go to prison. Instead, they negotiate settlements. Thus, on February 9th, 2012, Attorney General Eric Holder announced the national mortgage settlement, which fined JP Morgan Chase and 4 other mega banks a total of $25 billion. JP Morgan shared the settlement was $5.3 billion, but only $1.1 billion had to be cashed in. The other $4.2 billion was to come in the form of financial relief for homeowners in danger of losing their homes to foreclosure. The settlement called for JP Morgan to reduce the amounts owed, modify the loan terms, and take other steps to help distressed Americans keep their homes. A separate 2013 settlement against the bank for deceiving mortgage investors included another $4 billion in consumer relief. Here's the good stuff. A Nation investigation can now reveal JP Morgan met part of its $8.2 billion settlement burden by using other people's money. Here's how the alleged scam worked. JP Morgan moved to forgive the mortgage of tens of thousands of homeowners. The feds, in turn, credited these canceled loans against the penalties due under the 2012 and 2013 settlements. But here's the rub. In many instances, JP Morgan was forgiving loans it no longer owned. The alleged fraud is described in internal JP Morgan documents, public records, testimony from homeowners and investors burned in the scam, and other evidence presented in a blockbuster lawsuit against JP Morgan, now being heard in U.S. District Court. Steve, I don't know, what do they call using other people's money?
Well, theft in this case, because it's not socialism. That's the thing. They have perverted the word socialism so much. Uh, you've hit on something very important, and this is the elite control fraud that always goes unspoken of, always ignored. And this is the makings of a great docuseries out there called The Con. It's also The Big Short, and it's also still going on to this day. We have still got the same exact corruption that is going on that you see JP Morgan and more importantly Jamie Dimon benefiting from, and it's going to continue happening. This is why so much of the idea of a progressive Green New Deal is contingent on us eradicating corruption for a clean New Deal. And so this idea of socialism, first of all, socialism is owning the means of production. It is a level, it's a spectrum, if you will, of who owns the means of production. There's very rarely a fully socialist country out there. There hasn't been that kind of fully run socialist country maybe ever. So they're conflating a lot of things with government services and so forth as socialism. But Jamie Dimon in particular is one of the most corrupt bastards on the planet. And the revolving door between the White House and regulation and the lack of, auditory and the ability to rein in corruption on Wall Street. It's like attacking a ginormous, David and Goliath story minus the rock. So these guys are running roughshod over all of us. They own government. They literally write the laws. They hand them to unwitting Congress people that don't understand the banking industry, don't understand finance. They don't understand Wall Street. In fact, many of the people out there that run the credit agencies are so corrupt. They know that if they don't give Jamie Dimon what he wants, that they won't be used, and then they will go out of business. So the entire corruption works its way all the way through the apparatus of finance. And until we have enough SAC to really, really enforce laws on the books and to actually pursue and prosecute white collar crime, we are never going to see the kind of changes that we need. So this idea of socialism, that is a big old red herring, scarecrow of bullshit. It's really just a deflection from showing Jamie Dimon as the criminal that he is, and he needs to be behind bars, not getting a $52 million bonus.
And also, I love in the clip on CNBC where he says socialism is when the government takes control of corporations. No, it's just the opposite way. We have a system where the corporations have taken control of the government, i.e., United Corporations of America. By the way, you could get the United Corporations of America t-shirt on statuscoup.com/store. Just saying, it's a badass t-shirt. Definitely wear it to the beach and barbecues this summer. That's at statuscoup.com/store. Shameless plug. But so wait, it's socialism when the government takes over corporations, but it's just, free market when they purchase the government.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is bad though. It's ridiculous. And if you ever really want to dig into this stuff and learn the history, go back to Ferdinand Pecor. I'm not going to take you down memory lane here, but definitely check out the book Wolf of Wall Street to learn about all the stuff that's gone on. And there's so many good books. David Dayen, Chain of Title, I think it's called. Great book. It's come out not too long ago. And again, I'll refer back to The Con. Bill Black wrote a great book. The best way to rob a bank is to own one. And Dimon proves it on the daily. So definitely we got to purge corruption. Or this shit's going to just keep continuing, man. There's no question. And it is not fucking socialism. Excuse my French.
Right. So it's just nauseating. And by the way, just in the context of MMT, which is obviously Steve's forte, literally, people complain about, athletes, basketball players, football players making $30-40 million a year. I'm actually not okay with that either, even though I love, watching a lot of these sports. We literally have people right now without baby formula. We have people right now basically have been on a rolling basis being evicted from their homes in this country. We have people right now rationing insulin. We have people right now basically still during this pandemic having to make choices financially because they have stacks and stacks of bills from COVID treatment that was supposed to be covered. Meanwhile, there's enough money to give Jamie Dimon $52 million bonus after he defrauded the global financial system. I mean, just think of when they say, how are you going to pay for it? How are we paying for this? Who's paying for this? Us, directly and indirectly. This is why when you look at that income inequality chart since the early 1980s, you shouldn't call it income inequality. It's the greatest heist in the world's history. It is stealing our money from the poor, from the working poor, from the industrialists who built this country, and giving it to Jamie Dimon so he could have 24 bidets probably in his multiple mansions. It's grotesque. And you want to know something? Biden, the Republicans, doesn't matter. You want to say Democrats are better on social issues? That's fine. On the economic matters of the day, Obama had a legacy opportunity. There wasn't anyone that was going to challenge him on arresting some bankers, criminal penalties, and he chose to do nothing. Let them get away with murder because people died from the financial crash, both through suicides, homelessness, etc. He chose to let Jamie Dimon and others get away with murder.
Let's go back to the Bill Clinton era. Bill Clinton, when he repealed Glass-Steagall and then went ahead and did his reinventing government and went ahead and crushed welfare reform and really, really hurt so many single moms, especially women of color. That entire idea of the balanced budget, the surplus that he did as he repealed Glass-Steagall, set the stage for every bad thing that happened under Bush and every bad thing that happened under Obama. It started right there. And the worst part of it, and you can find this out there on the web, easy to find, is a picture of Bill Clinton handing the pen that he signed away Glass-Steagall to none other than Sandy Weil, who is the asshole that was pushing for the repeal of Glass-Steagall, one of the key members that made all the control fraud happen. This is like the fourth or fifth or 10th act of all these different control scams that go back to the savings and loan crisis. If you remember the Keating Five, I mean, this is continuing and continuing. And Jamie Dimon is just out there. He's not even hiding it, man. 52 million bonus for what? For theft? So honestly, I'd love to know his definition of just capitalism, because as I see a man making a $52 million bonus while simultaneously authoring laws that cripple the ability for us to regulate and enforce white-collar crime in the finance sector. This is a man who has singularly been responsible for many, many, many suicides as people have lost homes as a result of his nefarious business practice. So fuck Jamie Dimon, clearly. Straight up.
Absolutely.
Fuck him hard.
And for more people, we should say fuck you too. Keep smashing that like button. Share this stream. As a reminder, if you came late, tomorrow night, 7 o'clock Eastern is going to be our members call. StatusCoup.com/join. Become a member for as low as $5 a month. That's 16 cents a day. Support on the ground reporting. We are going to try and cover some other races coming up, including Jessica Cisneros down in Texas, running against the anti-choice Democrat that Nancy Pelosi and the rest of them have been rallying around, corrupt Henry Cuellar, who is also under FBI investigation. Rah-rah, nice. Democrats rallying around him. So we're going to try to cover that on the ground. Some other things in the works that maybe we'll tell you about during our members call tomorrow night. Hint, hint, sign up, StatusCoup.com/join. So another couple FUs. There is a pissing match that's gone on, Steve, between the president and Jeff Bezos. I can't really cheer for either of them because they're both scoundrels and they're both full of shit. But let's start from the top with Biden tweets out the same stuff we've heard over the years. You want to bring down inflation? Let's make sure the wealthiest corporations pay their fair share. Well, first of all, I've been hearing about the wealthiest paying their fair share since I was in the womb. Basically means nothing. Their idea of wealthiest paying their fair share is essentially I don't know, a 2% tax increase that wealthy people won't even pay because of their accountants. But I digress that. Before we get to Jeff Bezos' response, Steve, will making sure the wealthy, who I would love to pay their fair share and more, but specifically on inflation, will this help inflation?
Now, first things first, let's be crystal clear. He's not talking about the wealthiest people. If you want to talk about taxing the wealthiest people, I'm all for taxing the shit out of the C-suite. Tax the bejesus out of Jamie Dimon. Put a 95% tax on that $52 billion. Fine, no problem. I'm with you there. But as far as taxing corporations goes, that is not going to in any way, shape, or form dampen inflation. In fact, what they're doing is they're creating a price increase because corporations never pay that tax. They pass that on to you and I and every other mother trying to buy formula and every other person trying to buy a car, every person trying to make their mortgage, all these things. That's where that money gets pushed out to. It doesn't get put onto the C-suite. The C-suite just makes more money. As they raise the prices, they go ahead and take in more windfall cash returns individually. The place to tax is on the C-suite. I know people got this fetish about taxing corporations, but if you put the tax on the individuals running the company, that's when you're going to see real change because that really hurts somebody. The corporation itself, they're just going to pass it on. That's God's honest. That's exactly how it works. And so I know it seems like a good gotcha, but the only gotcha is on us. It's, again, another one of those things that screws the 99%. We feel good. We feel righteous. It's not the way to do it. Tax the C-suite and make them suffer there. Bring about that kind of balance at the C-suite. And it's not going to do anything for inflation.
And also, you know what fair share actually would mean in materially changing the structural inequalities in this country? Amazon paying their fair share to the workers.
Yes, now you're talking.
Walmart paying their fair share to the workers. Because I don't need the taxes to go to the government. I want the workers to be paid more. We're going to get into it, but there's Amazon workers literally sleeping in their cars in New York City, even making $18 an hour, which in New York City is the equivalent of $7.25, basically. But Jeff Bezos, hero of the workers, of course, responded to Biden on Biden's tweet. He tweeted, the newly created disinformation board should review this tweet, or maybe they need to form a new non sequitur board instead. Raising corporate taxes is fine to discuss. Oh, thank you for giving us permission to discuss it, King Bezos. Taming inflation is critical to business. Mushing them together is just misdirection. So it pains me to agree with him on one thing.
I was going to say.
This disinformation board or Ministry of Truth is very cringe and very dangerous. But putting that aside, raising corporate taxes is fine to discuss. Well, you've been fighting against both personal income tax increases in Washington state, among other places, as well as corporate tax increases, basically since you rose to become a filthy billionaire. But taming inflation is critical to discuss. Well, Amazon's part of the inflation by the price gouging and other exploitative measures they take, correct?
Yeah, so think about this, right? Amazon has got largely monopoly power for the work that they do. There's really no one that does what Amazon does. So Amazon has no real natural threat to dethrone them. So capitalism says, what is the number one rule? Maximize shareholder value, period. That is the number one rule for capitalism. And so when you look at Bezos and jacking up prices, he's serving his shareholders. I mean, straight up, he's serving the shareholders. The only way to fix that is to tax capital gains, is to go after unearned income. Okay. But Bezos is correct. I hate to say that. That hurts to say. But Biden is appealing to low information voters by trying to say, we'll make corporations pay the fair share in taxes. And never mind the fact that, like, raising interest rates, even these are all these things that people think because they've heard it makes sense, but it doesn't make sense. Raising interest rates is a basic income for the wealthy. It gives people that already have money more money. So raising interest rates actually exacerbates wealth inequality. Jacking up taxes on corporations feels good. Soak the rich, but it's not the rich you're soaking. It's you and I we're soaking, because any cost increases. The cost of production, the cost of labor, whatever. They don't sit there and absorb those cost runs. They go ahead and pass them on to you and I. So if the goal is to crush the economy by making us not be able to afford anything, then maybe you do it, because that's what interest rate raising does. Now all of a sudden you're going to pay 50% in interest on your credit card, 20%, 28%, 30%, whatever. You may not want to make a purchase with a credit card. That's what raising interest rates does, and most people don't have a couple $100 in the bank, so they end up using those credit cards. So what is it doing? It's actually taking more money out of your and my pocket and simultaneously passing on more money upward. So it expands the wealth gap, both raising taxes on corporations and raising interest rates on credit.
Absolutely. And by the way, let's not agree with Jeff Bezos too much, because he doesn't.
It's horrible.
He's also pushing the nonsense that we have inflation because of gas and this and that. No, we have criminal price gougers like Jeff Bezos screwing the masses.
Look over there at Saudi Arabia. They got a monopoly on the production of oil at this point, largely. I mean, everyone has produced as much as they can produce. Saudi Arabia is controlling their output because there's only so much oil we actually are going to use. They're not going to produce more than they need. They're not going to drive the price down, because remember, the object of being a corporation selling this stuff is to make the absolute most money you can. Without a natural competition going on here, monopolistic behaviors are creating this inflation. So yes, gas prices are creating inflation, but if you look around, take California, for example. California's got $2, $3, $4 worth of taxes on a gallon of gas. You see it $7, $8 a gallon there. Most of it's in taxation to pay for services and stuff. But this brings out that split-mindedness, doesn't it, Jordan? We're all saying we want a Green New Deal. We're all saying we want to clean the environment up. But at the same time, we're saying, hey, we want to decrease the cost of petroleum products so that we can use more of it. So there's like a split-mindedness here. We need the government to have a real honest-to-God energy policy that targets green energy, whatever that means, and make a decision to get us away from fossil fuels if that's the approach. Otherwise, we're kind of talking out of two different sides of our head. We want to clean the environment. Well, that means we got to decrease our carbon output, which means we got to slow our driving around. But the flip side is that we're not going to do that if gas is $2 a gallon. So the high cost of low prices, well, this is the high cost of high prices too. We got to understand that there's a cause and effect here. So I'm a little trapped between the two sides there, because what happens if we lower the price? Well, if you believe we're in an existential climate crisis, which I believe we are, we've got to curb emissions drastically, and not in 30 years, but IPCC gave us 12 years 4 years ago. So it's 8 years today.
Absolutely. And I want to also show you the other tweet from Jeff Bezos. I don't know if he's tweeting or he has some millennial or Generation Z guy. So he's responding to the White House put out this statement. It doesn't require a huge leap to figure out why one of the wealthiest individuals on earth opposes an economic agenda for the middle class that cuts some of the biggest costs families face, fights inflation for the long haul, and adds to the historic deficit reduction the president is achieving by asking the richest taxpayers and corporations to pay their fair share. It's also unsurprising that this tweet comes after the president met with labor organizers, including Amazon employees. Steve, color me, kind of cynical or kind of contrarian. If they know this about Jeff Bezos, why did the Biden administration just give another $10 billion grant to Amazon?
Hey, man. I'm telling you, a lot of it's smoke and mirrors, isn't it? A lot of it's smoke and mirrors. I wonder what his portfolio looks like.
Oh my God. Yeah, we're going to take pictures with Christian Smalls and Amazon. We're coming, and we're going to put out the We're for Unions, and then give the biggest union buster $10 billion of government money. Anyway, so Jeff Bezos responds, look, a squirrel. This is the White House statement about my recent tweets. They understandably want to muddy the topic. They know inflation hurts the neediest the most, but unions aren't causing inflation, and neither are wealthy people. Remember, the administration tried. I want to. Oh, there's another one here. Their best to add another 3.5 trillion to federal spending. They failed, but if they had succeeded, inflation would be even higher than it is today, and inflation today is at a 40-year high. Before you respond, I have to address Jeff Bezos's, sincere concern for the neediest among us. That's what he said. Here's an interview I did with an Amazon worker who's homeless, among others. The PR that Amazon puts out there, you get all these commercials that are rainbows and sunshines, and they're helping people through school, and it's wonderful being an Amazon worker. Well, there's a lot of people that are homeless Amazon workers.
Right. At last count, there were about over 100 cars in this outside parking lot and the inside parking lot, the covered multi-layer lot behind me. And they're there 24/7, including on the holidays, like on Christmas and New Year's Day when there aren't that many people here. They're here 24/7. And I feel for them. I'm one of them. So, we try to advocate, and I'm trying to hook up people with other people so that we can do roommate situations and share expenses and stuff. That also plays into the fact that hourly workers, mostly black and brown employees, do not get promoted. They just don't get promoted. They're not given interviews. Everybody in there in these buildings plays favorites. You have to be a young white male fresh out of college in order to get into a management position here. And it creates a huge us versus them situation in there because a lot of those kids are very spoiled, very racist, very sexist, and they're constantly targeting some of the best employees that Amazon has in there.
You said you're one of them, so you're currently homeless working at Amazon?
Currently am, yeah. I have been homeless for the past, 2.5, almost 3 years that I've been here now. And I haven't been able to afford a place. None of my family's out here. It's mind-boggling because the rest of the country is thinking, well, she's making more than minimum wage. How come she can't afford a place to live? Well, it's because there's no affordable rent out here. And we don't make enough, and we don't get promoted. I've been with the company since 2017. I have an AA degree. I've trained literally hundreds of people since I've been in Jersey and New York. And I've applied over a dozen times for positions at the next level, Tier 3. I can't even get an interview.
So that's one example. I want to show one more. They fired a union organizer. They fired a union organizer in Staten Island who then became homeless. Let's take a listen.
While Jeff Bezos is living on his yacht, enjoying the life of a multi-billionaire, Daquan, because he was fired and because of reversals that occurred as a result of not having an income, is living in a homeless shelter in the Bronx.
And can you kind of talk about what was the activity he was doing? Because Status Coup viewers know, I've been there. There's basically been this unofficial headquarters outside the warehouse with a blue tent. That's where Amazon Labor Union, which is the band of workers that are fighting to unionize, they've been since April of last year handing out union literature, handing out free food, talking to workers, trying to inform them about what the union's about, trying to get them to sign cards expressing their interest in joining the union. So that's been going on. What is it that Daquan was doing in terms of organizing for the union?
Well, Daquan was working inside, I don't believe it was JFK 8, I believe it was one of the other buildings. And he was signing employees up for the union during his breaks, lunches, before and after work. He was following the rules. He also had a Weingarten card, which gives employees the right to bring in a code worker in the case they're being disciplined or an issue occurs with the employer. And he was very visible about his union activities, which are, of course, are protected under federal labor law. And this employer disregarded all of this, targeted him, and fired him.
Oh, yeah. Jeff Bezos worried about the neediest amongst us. So obviously you got Biden, Bezos, theatrical back and forth over inflation. Neither one of them is being honest on the real source of inflation, but it's just unbelievable. This is how weak the Democratic Party is, intentionally weak, because they're depending on Bezos and his ilk to fund their campaigns. So they could kind of slap them on the wrist, but not really go at them. Literally, I mean, Biden, the White House, they could message on all of these things against Jeff Bezos. They choose not to, and they choose to fair share, which means nothing.
Well, I think the grossest thing about that before the video you showed, which is horrible, but just going back to Bezos's tweet, he talked about there was another $3.5 trillion they were trying to spend that didn't have, and had they done it, inflation would have gone through the roof. Well, that's just simply not true. I mean, I despise Joe Biden. I mean, you check my receipts; they're miles long. They go back to the campaign. I've never liked Joe Biden. I still don't like Joe Biden. I think he's proven to be one of the worst presidents we've ever had in the United States. That said, the idea of Joe Biden's Build Back Better program, whether you like it or not, would have put money towards infrastructure. It would have put money towards the things that would have enhanced the supply chains domestically, that would have made it so that the goods and services, which are what is causing the lack thereof, is one of the key indicators that is causing inflation, aside from gouging and things like that, is the breakdown in supply chains. Had Build Back Better gone through, these would have been targeted spending that would have made the country more capable of delivering the types of goods and services we need to keep costs down. However, we got to realize that one of the key drivers of all price increases these days is the ubiquitous nature of oil through every product, from plastics to glass to lubricants to fuel. And as long as that rises up, you're going to see inflation. We need to have an energy policy in this country to tame that down, but it has nothing to do with spending money, folks. But unfortunately, I guarantee you 90% of the people that listen to Rachel Maddow and the rest of the world of alt media, you name it, are coming away thinking, yeah, Jeff Bezos is right. He said if Biden would have spent money, we'd had more inflation. That's simply not true. It's a lie. It's not even just wrong. It's a blatant lie. So I'm hoping that we can dispel that pretty quickly, because at the end of the day, if we try to get into that mindset, you have to really absorb the fact that that means that all of the important policy space you think you're fighting for, if that's the case, it will cause inflation. So there's no point in a Green New Deal. There's no point in Medicare for all. There's no point in any of these things, because inflation, right? That's what it comes down to. So remember that it's not just because you want those programs that it's not true. It's not true because it's simply not freaking true. The fact is, do we have enough real resources? And by doing something like a Build Back Better, where you're actually creating the infrastructure, I would have much rather the Green New Deal than Build Back Better, but that's another story. The point is that it would have made recessionary pressures go away. It would have made inflationary pressures less poignant, but it would also given us the opportunity to have more people employed, rising wages to meet rising inflation, and it really wouldn't matter.
And, I think most importantly, because to viewers, I mean, they're being affected. We all are,
Yes.
right? This isn't going away. I mean, this is not
Nope.
just an election issue. It's not going away when Republicans retake the House, which I think they will, probably the Senate. I don't see this inflation just magically disappearing. You might have, peaks and valleys, go up, go down. We saw gas prices go down slightly, and then they started going back up again. But I'm not an economist, but I see this potentially lingering on for another year or two.
Well, just remember this. Jerome Powell has come out straightforward and said, this is going to hurt. I'm going to do what they did in the 70s, and I'm not waiting. I'm going to jack interest
He's
rates
the
up.
Federal Reserve Chair, just so you know.
Yes, the Federal Reserve Chair, Jerome Powell, is out there telling everybody he is going to take a page from the Paul Volcker rule book. And Volcker was the guy who reined the Fed back during the days of the OPEC oil crisis in the 70s, where we had runaway inflation, and he used insane austerity, insane interest rates to bring that down. What he did was literally said, hey, we're going to save the economy by literally destroying the economy. And that's what it looks like Jerome Powell is seeking to do as well. I mean, we're going to be living on private credit, and private credit is going to be going through the roof because they're raising interest rates. It's a big old circle jerk, and it has only one thing that can happen, and that is the collapse of the economy to save the economy from inflation. And it's ridiculous. I mean, we need price controls on fuel. We need to go ahead and nationalize it, in my opinion. We need to go ahead and provide a living wage and a job guarantee for regular people as they get laid off, because they will. We need to be able to have a real honest to God understanding that the real goods and services have to be there for purchase. Otherwise, they're going to be trying to print money, so to speak, as they say, to be able to afford the goods and services that are now super high in price. So I think that it's very misplaced to think that this is about printing money. I think it's very misplaced to think that this is just an election issue. And I think it's very misplaced to think that this is some nefarious thing, whatever. This is really, truly price gouging on one level, and a government that's unwilling to prosecute white collar crime to prevent it. So you want to see change. We got to end white collar crime. We got to go after the corruption. We need to purge corruption, and we need all of us fighting back to do that.
Absolutely. And lastly, this is a spicy little topic, and it might make you laugh or cry. Obviously, Steve, we've seen this horrific shooting in Buffalo, which I've been covering. Obviously, the focus on Tucker Carlson and other Republicans, not even just embracing, but full on pushing conspiracy nonsense like the replacement theory, which unlike Glenn Greenwald, who apparently has become Tucker Carlson's golf caddy, I will say Tucker Carlson has been pushing this for years. He has clearly been pushing white people are being replaced. Anyone with a brain knows he's not talking about just every American is being replaced. When Tucker Carlson mentions legacy Americans, he's not talking about Mexicans. But the Democratic Party's reaction is interesting to this. Sure, Chuck E. Cheese Schumer wrote a letter to Fox News, stop pushing this out, yada, yada, yada. Of course, Fox News isn't going to do a damn thing. Tucker Carlson is their money-making machine, just like Bill O'Reilly was. But this clip on MSNBC from MSNBC's branding expert, Donnie Deutsch, let's take a listen how he thinks, because the Democratic Party, they all watch Morning Joe and kind of like are one and the same. He thinks is a good strategy to defeat Republican extremism.
All right, so Donnie, so let's talk first of all. This isn't a branding issue. This is a really serious issue, and it's important that people, whether they're Democrats, Republicans, independents alike, whether it's Liz Cheney or other people who are deeply offended by what's happening with this great replacement theory, the question is, what is the best way to push back on this hatred? What's the best way to push back on this conspiracy theory that's based on a Jewish international banker? I mean, it is so anti-Semitic. And of course, they've slotted George Soros in there, trying to make the country like browner and blacker. What's the best way for people to push back on that lie?
You take this heinous platform and you make the Republicans own it. I want to say it again, make the Republicans own it. Every Republican politician, every Republican candidate, ask them about it. Make them, because they can't run from it because it's part of who they are at this point, as disgusting as that is. But make it the Republican replacement theory. Mainstream it, because this is the way you have to scare. We don't have the economy on our side as Democrats, so you have to scare the bejesus out of people. The way to scare it is say, this replacement theory, this is not just coming from some dark corner of the web. This is the Republican platform. Make them own it. And if Democrats run from this fistfight, I know in the previous segment, Eugene Daniels, you talked about the president not wanting to call out names. Call out Tucker Carlson. Call out the politicians and make them own it. This is a Republican platform.
Steve, you're a Rust Belt voter there. Republican extremists, pushing you're being replaced, this and that. Is the winning recipe just to outscare, swing voters or moderate voters or even some Republicans that, hey, let's scare them that you're being taken down a really, really gross, evil, fascistic tunnel there. We just need to outscare them.
No, in fact, this goes back to what I said earlier about the way the Republicans are actually branding their candidates in their own political ads. They're owning this. They're not running from it. They're embracing it. They are flat out. It's like naked bigotry all the way. They are literally dog whistling every single truck driver, every single guy with a flag on his F-150 truck and his gun rack in the back, and these colors don't run kind of thing. Every one of these coal rollers is listening to that and hearing and saying, "You're goddamn right. There's a great replacement theory. My own eyes see it. I know this to be true." And they're not gonna. Let them own it. They'll own it. They won't even care. They're running on it. So I think it's kind of hilarious. But I also found it interesting. He talked about us Democrats. Like, that's a pretty bold step right there. That what was that? CNBC?
That was MSNBC.
MSNBC. We Democrats. So like, they're not even hiding that the MSNBC is actually just the Democratic, whatever outpost, so to speak. But more importantly, over his shoulder was brother Bill Clinton. I was watching. It was just like, these are the same neoliberal third way Democrats trying to act like they're the friend of the people, but they're just as bad in their own sick situation here. I don't think any of it matters. I think Republicans know exactly what they are. They're afraid of black and brown and gay people and trans people because they want to be the ones. They want to be the great white hope. They want things to be the way they've always been. They're scared of change. And so owning it isn't going to offend them at all. That's what they are. They agree with it. They have no shame. It's not going to in any way, shape, or form cause them any shame or anything whatsoever. They're going to own it and love it.
Well, also, besides it being absurd, and you're not going to outscare the preeminent scarecrow, which is the Republican Party, when he says we don't have the economy on our side. Why do you think that is, Donnie? Why do you think that is, Joe and Mika? Maybe because your president unilaterally moonwalked away from a $15 minimum wage, which at this point, I mean, with inflation, I don't even know if a $15 minimum, it would be better than what we have now, but not nearly sufficient. Moonwalked away from, $2,000 checks, moonwalked away from a public option. I mean, I could go on and on and on. So the economy is not on your side. There's a lot of factors outside of Biden's control, but there's a lot of factors within his control, including the fact that he rolled up like a little scarecrow and, in fetal position and let Joe Manchin tank his presidency when he could have used the bully pulpit of the presidency like a Lyndon B. Johnson did to demand BBB pass. And we've talked about that before. Hey, Joe, your daughter, she got away with this price gouging of insulin. Could have our Department of Justice look into that. So he doesn't seem to want to address why the economy is not in our favor.
No. And it's really sad because if you've heard Joe Biden try to get in the bully pulpit, he can't talk anymore, literally. So there is no pulpit for him to speak from. He would need a proxy to do that stuff because he literally, his gaffes are more than they've ever been. It's to the point where it's painful to watch him speak. And so he has no ability to sell any ideas at all at this point. And the ideas that he is selling, he is not a progressive, folks. He's not the most progressive president since FDR. He is not in any way, shape, or form. This guy is a Wall Street guy. He's always been the senator from MBNA. I mean, this is a guy that, a congressman or senator or whatever the hell he is, vice president, president. He has always been from, MBNA Delaware. I mean, he is not in any way, shape, or form trying to do anything other than serve Wall Street. And it's a shame. But he's not good, and the Democrats are not good. And the Democrats have taken a decidedly pro Wall Street approach to literally everything since Bill Clinton. And it shows no signs whatsoever of stopping.
Absolutely. I know you got to go plug Real Progressives, Rogue Scholar, all that good stuff.
Yep. So please come check me out Monday, Wednesday, Friday at noon. I am the Rogue Scholar at Real Progress in Action on YouTube. Please subscribe to our channel. We're much smaller than Jordan. We'd like to get a few more people over there. So if you follow us and you like what you hear from me, by all means, please become a subscriber. I also produce a podcast weekly called Macro and Cheese. It is on macroeconomics and socio-political, geopolitical discussion points with experts. That comes out every Saturday morning at 8 a.m. And I am also do stuff here with Jordan Thursday nights. I believe we're moving Let's Get Ready to Grumble to 8 p.m. Thursday evenings. You won't want to miss this week. I'm going to keep it a secret even from Jordan until it's produced. So hopefully you guys enjoy that, but definitely keep checking us out. And Jordan, thank you very much for the Vine. I appreciate it.
Yes, thanks for pre-recording earlier. Everybody go subscribe now to Real Progressives on YouTube, Rogue Scholar, all that good stuff. Steve, in many similarities, covers a lot of topics that are not sexy. YouTube's algorithm does not elevate, does not push, it does not get recommended, but is vital, including corruption, MMT, other things. So go give it a subscribe, support them if you can, and I will talk to you later, Steve.
Thank you, sir. Have a good one.
Absolutely. Before we go, one more reminder. Tomorrow night, 7 o'clock Eastern time, our monthly members call. Be there or be square. Sign up, statuscoup.com/join, statuscoup.com/join. Become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. You'll get the link, the Zoom link through email a little bit before the call at 7 o'clock Eastern. Last time we had about 40, 50 people. I'd love to get that number up. So if you're a member, this applies to patrons too and YouTube members. You will get the link to join us on Zoom. We usually go for an hour or two, let you ask questions, comments, concerns, all that good stuff. So definitely sign up if you can. That's statuscoup.com/join. Have a good night. I'll see you again here tomorrow, 5 o'clock Eastern time. Take care.